Here, I got it. Here, I got it, John. Okay. So we're excited to get started here today. We're talking about Category 2 strength winds across Kansas today. So let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, and we are live. We're going to check audio real quick before we get started here. Looks like you can hear us and everything, so thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we are talking about extreme winds today, likely up to Category 2 force winds this afternoon. So what we're talking about with this here is up to 100-mile-per-hour wind speeds in Kansas this afternoon and evening hours. So we'll talk about timing on that here in just a few minutes. Last night, we saw those high winds in Kansas. We're going to see another round of that tonight in both Kansas and in portions of northern Oklahoma. So we'll talk about exactly where to expect that as well. High plains today. We've got that moderate risk. That was upgraded early this morning to that level 4 out of 5 risk for storms that not only include that wind risk that we've talked about already, but also that large hail and tornado risk for today. And it doesn't stop there. We have another risk that has been upgraded to an enhanced risk across the Midwest for tomorrow. So we've got all hazards possible here, including that tornado risk. So again, here we go, that level 4 risk. You can see level 1 in green, 2 in yellow, 3 in orange, and level 4 moderate risk highlighted there in red for northern Oklahoma and southern Kansas, including Wichita, Kansas, and including places like the very far northern area, like Woodward is right on the very edge of this here, and places like Enid also on the very edge of that risk there. Tomorrow, we have another upgrade here on Wednesday from St. Louis to Cincinnati. We have a level 3 risk. That's an enhanced risk highlighted there in orange. And then on Thursday, that risk shifts out to the northern plains and the East Coast. So let's go ahead and talk about what we saw yesterday, because what we saw yesterday was actually very, very impressive across Wichita, Kansas. Now, we saw some absolutely gorgeous photogenic tornadoes up to the north. Actually, several of them reported yesterday across Minnesota. We saw some strong storms across just to the west of Minneapolis and even out in the northwestern portion of Iowa. But this line was what we saw coming down into Kansas late last night, early this morning. Okay, so this was the line through central Nebraska. It continued to track down to the south across I-70. Now, this was warned. You see those hatched lines, those black lines that are going through I-70, going through these warnings here? What this means is that this is a significant severe thunderstorm warning that you need to wake up, stay away from doors and windows if this is issued. Sometimes these warnings like this will set off your phone, you know, the WIA on your phone, that's wireless emergency alert. And that'll make that big beeping noise, you know, like an amber alert on your phone because of the very intense winds that are coming through right now. So we've got tons of wind reports going through Kansas yesterday. This was early this morning, technically. And then as it came down into Wichita, what we saw out of this was wind speeds up to 101 miles an hour. That is up to Category 2 strength winds. Category 2 strength winds is 96 miles and higher. And that is what we saw in Wichita yesterday. So that was really, really impressive. We've seen reports all morning long of trees down, trees fallen on houses across especially the western side of Wichita, Kansas. And unfortunately, we're expecting another round of storms in that same exact area with high wind speeds once again today. So you can see that we've got a front set up right here. We actually already have a watch, including central Colorado out to the eastern side of the state right there. And a few showers going on right now. We have another risk up the East Coast today, across the Tennessee Valley and then up to places like Washington, D.C. Could see some storms today. You're pretty dry right now, maybe a few light showers out there, but we already have development. We knew that Denver storms were going to go up early. You can see them going up right now, actually. Current conditions show temperatures in the 60s, 70s, and 80s up there. And we actually already do have a severe thunderstorm warning near Denver. Let's get some info on this. So this one just to the east of Denver is warned for golf ball size hail. That's just to the north of Lehman, Colorado. And then let's go down to Colorado Springs, which actually recently got a 3-star hail map. Getting hail once again. 1-inch size hail is what this severe thunderstorm warning is warned for. And we do have a report in Colorado Springs. Okay, 1-inch size hail, quarter size hail is what we've seen already today. So you can see that this storm has already fired up here, and we should see more storms as we head into the early afternoon. We do have a severe thunderstorm watch ongoing right now. That goes until 5 o'clock this evening. This includes Aurora. It does include Denver, Fort Collins, and Lakewood, Colorado. About 3 million people included in this watch. And before we move on to your actual forecast, do we have any questions? I can see your questions over here on the side of my screen on the chat. We've got lots of people joining in here saying hello. Thanks for joining us on YouTube right now. Joel's saying Southwestern Missouri looking decent on Wednesday. Yeah, we'll talk about Wednesday here in just a minute as well. And we've got another question. Any hail in Chicago soon? Alrighty, we'll get to all of your questions here in just a few minutes, but let's move on here and talk about your hail risk for today, because while we do have a hail risk for tomorrow, we also have a very pretty significant one today. And look where we have the darker reds in here. So the darker reds, the oranges, that's going to be your larger hail sizes right in here through like central and southern portions of Colorado, all the way through the southwestern side of Kansas into southern Kansas and northern Oklahoma. That's where your largest hail is expected to be for today. Now let's zoom in here. Let's kind of go throughout the next few hours here. Okay, we could see some pretty decent sized hail in the Wichita area. Now the tricky thing with this, I'll kind of give you some inside baseball to what we were talking about in our forecast today. Whenever we see a line of storms like what we're expecting today, and they're moving so quickly, they've got some high wind speeds with those storms, it's hard for hail to get really, really large inside of those storms because it is just moving so fast. And we've got a few other questions on here as well. Wednesday, will hail be hitting Michigan? Yes, I'll show you your Wednesday forecast here in just a few minutes. Anyway, so that hail risk shifts down to the south as those storms do through the overnight hours tonight, and then it'll become an Oklahoma and Kansas issue early tomorrow morning on Wednesday morning. So what are we talking about for the largest hailstones here? Up to tennis ball size hail. I wouldn't rule it out. I think it is possible. However, it will be pretty isolated. Where would that be? Well, I think that we nailed this forecast already. I'll tell you that this hail forecast was finalized about 30 minutes ago before we got our report or our warning for golf ball size hail out in Colorado. So I think we did a pretty good job on this forecast here, really pinpointing exactly where we're expecting those larger hailstones. So we're saying anywhere from golf ball to tennis ball size hail down in the southeastern side of Colorado and into northwestern Oklahoma, into the northern side of the Texas Panhandle. Better chances for that large hail from Woodward up to Wichita, but still, Denver has a chance today. So you're saying there's a chance. Yes, we are. Denver, I know that you have been waiting on a hailstorm or two. You are in that severe thunderstorm watch until 5 o'clock today for large hail up to the size of a golf ball. You go farther up to the north, your hailstones go down. You go farther down to the south, your hail sizes go down as well. Now let's move on to what I think will be the most impactful hazard for today. That'll be that wind threat. So that wind threat today, especially in places like Wichita, Kansas, Woodward, Oklahoma, Enid, Oklahoma, all the way potentially even as far southeast as Tulsa, Oklahoma. That is where we're watching for the highest wind speeds today, again up to 100 miles an hour. That is Category 2 hurricane strength wind speeds. Now, for everyone else, Chicago, you could have some very minor winds today, maybe up to 60 miles an hour. Valentine going up to South Dakota now, 60 miles an hour. Denver, Colby, pretty similar, maybe up to 65, 75 miles an hour. But let's zoom down here. Let's really get into this Kansas risk here. And I want to add a few more cities on here as well, giving you now Tulsa and Joplin, still with that high risk for high wind today. Now, the range that we are showing you, highlighted there in dark blue, is between 74 and 95 miles an hour. But could we see a wind gust, very isolated, up to 100 miles an hour? Yes, I think that is possible for today. So up to 100 miles an hour, it's possible, but it'll be very isolated. One thing that we like to say in the weather community is we like to say the trend is your friend. So because we saw those strong storms with 100 mile per hour wind speeds reported early this morning out in Wichita, we think that we could see that once again today. We have those upper level winds that are really, really strong in the atmosphere that are going to push these storms along, helping to create that strong wind at the surface. So we'll see if we can get that, but I do think it's a very, very good chance today to see high wind speeds in this area, which is why we put high risks on the map here. Alrighty, moving on, because what we haven't talked about quite yet is those storms out along the Tennessee Valley, East Coast here, even up to Washington, D.C. has a high wind and a tornado risk today. It's a pretty low risk. I think every now and then you're going to see 65 to maybe 75 mile per hour wind speeds in this area. So a very wide region here, but pretty low risk for those high wind speeds. You know, we're really focusing out in Kansas today. We also have a tornado risk that goes along with those high winds. So every now and then we could see a few supercells, especially if they can sustain their strength, that do have the likelihood of producing a tornado or two in this area, mainly highlighted in this yellow area here. That's your level 2 risk for a few tornadoes, but also we can't rule out a few spin-up tornadoes out in places like Denver, southwestern Kansas, even as far south as Tulsa, OKC, and up to the north going into Kansas City and portions of Missouri here. So there's your tornado risk for today. A few tornadoes cannot be ruled out this afternoon and evening. We also have a very small tornado risk out in Washington, D.C. today and Richmond, Virginia. So that's a level 1. A tornado cannot be ruled out in this area either. So let's talk timing. We've talked about what. Let's talk about when. And I want to make sure I'm keeping up with your questions here. Omaha and Des Moines guy again. Colin, I told you, come back today and we'll talk about Omaha. Thanks for coming back. We are happy to see you again. Anything impacting here tonight? And Ollie on here asking, any good possibilities within the next couple days in Omaha and Lincoln? Yeah, so we can see Omaha on this map up here. You may be able to see it a little bit better when we zoom in a little bit farther to the east. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start with Denver, and then we're going to go to the south and east, and we're going to talk about Kansas, and then we're going to go down into Oklahoma as well. And Omaha, you'll be able to see your risk as well. But today, the storms in Omaha look like smaller hailstones, like quarter-size hailstones, and those lower wind speeds, we're talking 60, 65, maybe 75 miles an hour. So right now, we already have storms going up in central Colorado. We have storms near the Lehman area and Colorado Springs area. So I think this model is doing okay handling these storms at the moment. We'll continue to see storms, not only the coverage become a little bit more widespread, so we'll see more storms this afternoon, but we'll also continue to see them intensify into the afternoon hours. We've got a line of storms that really want to hug I-25 here, anywhere from Cheyenne all the way down to Denver. So don't get too complacent here. We still have a risk going until 5 o'clock this evening. These storms will continue to track to the east and to the eastern side of Colorado through the overnight hours. In Denver, you'll be able to sleep soundly tonight because by the time you go to bed, the storms will be out of your area. Now moving into Kansas. So we rewound the radar. We're going to start it again. So once again, we've got a few showers out in the northwestern side of Kansas right now. A little bit of rain going on in central Kansas. We're going to continue to see this intensify as we head into the afternoon hours. So through this afternoon, through your evening commute, make sure that you're checking the radar before you head out of work, before you head home from work or maybe out to dinner tonight, right? Salina, Kansas, all the way down to Wichita. This is whenever these storms really start to intensify, not only this afternoon, but we could also see this continuing through the evening hours tonight. So I told you, KC, before you head out, check the radar first. But then before you head home from dinner, maybe start to wrap up for the evening, check the radar once again, because you've got storms coming your way between about 6 and 8 o'clock tonight, coming through Kansas City itself as we head into sundown hours, so maybe right around 8 to 9 o'clock tonight. We'll continue to see these storms as we head into the late night hours. Now, let me show you something here. This is what our meteorologists are watching for today. Do you see this backwards C-shaped right here? We call this a Boeing line segment. What this means is that we probably have some high wind in this area. This is a very similar thing to what we saw down here in Wichita last night. It's very common to see on the radar, and it's pretty easy to spot, but what we're watching for in here are these Boeing line segments that are going to create that, or that signify on the radar, that high and extreme wind. So this is what we're watching for as we head into the evening hours tonight. I think you're going to see that wind risk go up. Now, again, it's nighttime, it's nocturnal, right? It's hard to spot. So make sure that you have multiple ways to get your weather alerts as you head into the overnight hours. Not only for Kansas, but this will shift down into Oklahoma, the western side of Missouri, and then the northwestern side of Arkansas as well, really favoring the Turner Turnpike up to Tulsa and then down to Fort Smith, Arkansas by early tomorrow morning. You're sleeping at this time. It could wake you up in the overnight hours. So again, make sure that you have multiple ways to get your weather alerts. And there's your risk. Now let's go out to the east. And if we have any questions, I'll try to go back and answer any of those questions here. Looking out to the east today, we've got spotty, scattered showers and storms that will be ongoing not only through this afternoon, but also this evening. These storms could create some very, very small hail, smaller than the size of a quarter. So we like to call this pocket change hail. We're talking about your nickel, dime, penny-sized hail today. Small hail, maybe, if you're lucky. Really, the biggest risk here will be that wind risk. And then we'll also see a tornado risk as you go farther up into the north in places like Washington, D.C., and then into Richmond, Virginia. So this area right here, we're going to watch for an isolated tornado today. Okay, so there's your timeline. We talked about who, when, where, what. Let's see what our questions are today. Carlos asking, what happened with the hail this morning in North Denver? I'm not sure. Let me check real quick. I think this is the most fun part about doing this live on Facebook and YouTube, because you ask that question and then I can immediately go to our maps and I can look. Ooh, I see what you mean. Okay, so I'll tell you what our meteorologists mapped this morning. Anywhere from just north of Fort Collins, hugging I-25, we got up to 2-inch size hail in this area. On hailtrace.com, we do have a few pictures of this as well, coming from the Milliken Police Department. We've got a few pictures coming from them. Some pretty decent size hail. Let's see, I think we've got $half size hail on the northern side of Denver, right along Highway 76. And we've got a few pictures of that as well at hailtrace.com. Great question. That must have come through really early this morning. We've also got some hail from this morning out in Fort Morgan, also along Highway 76. Good question there. Oh, and I love these. What's the weather for Seattle today? Seattle, not in the storm risk today, thankfully. But let's see if we can get the weather for you, because we like to cover the entire country. Ooh, it's nice in Seattle today. High of 75 and sunny out in Seattle today. Overnight tonight, you could get some rain. We're talking overnight tonight, early tomorrow morning, you'll get some rain. But then you're back up into a high of 69 on Thursday with a few clouds. So you've got a good week coming for you. And I love Hunter's comment. Thanks for making it hail in Denver. We try our best. We actually have no say in what happens with the weather, but I'm glad that we can, if we get blamed for the bad days, we better get blamed for the good days as well. Okay, let's move on here. Let's go Just a little recap of your radar right now. Yes, Chicago, you are getting storms for tomorrow. So we'll talk about those storms for tomorrow as well. And we'll talk about the risk for tomorrow because I know there were some questions. I think, what was that? Southeastern Missouri. For tomorrow, you can not only get some afternoon storms, but maybe even some overnight storms in the far, far southeastern edge of Missouri. Continuing into overnight Wednesday and Thursday morning, we're going right through central Tennessee and into Kentucky with a long line of storms here as well. But we can kind of break this down day by day by looking at the risks. So you saw your timeline there, but I think that it does really give you an idea of how strong these storms could be and how many storms that we could see go severe by looking at these Storm Prediction Center risks. So we are at a level 3, numerous storms likely to go severe anywhere from southeastern Missouri to the southern side of Illinois, central Indiana, and southern Michigan, western side of Ohio. Moving to Thursday now, it's a low risk, but another chance for strong to severe storms up the East Coast and into the northern plains. And there's your risks for not only today. We broke down that hail, wind, and tornado hazard today, but we also talked about Wednesday and Thursday. So thanks for joining us today. Temperatures really quick before we go. A little bit of a cool down on Wednesday, right before a warm up out to the west. It's going to stay pretty muggy. Man, last night it was so hard for temperatures to cool down here in Oklahoma City just because we are pretty muggy right now. And it doesn't look like this cool down will last very long. Any type of cooler weather that we get will probably not be too significant. Maybe out to the west, so places like Seattle, maybe you're going to see a little bit of a cool down next week. So we're talking about the end of June here. But what we do see starting to set up over the next few days is we start to see a high pressure system setting up in the Midwest. And what that's going to help with is it's going to help with heat and clear skies out in this area. So it's going to start to get really, really warm. You're going to feel that June heat, that summertime classic heat. You're going to feel that as we head into the end of June. Again, that is the 22nd through the 26th. Really, really hot out to the Midwest. And we're most likely going to stay in this above average trend, so hotter than average trend here through most of summer. July and August also look pretty warm. And there's your forecast for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox. As always, if you have more questions, I'm pretty good about staying in the comments over the next hour-ish and answering any comments that I can or any questions that I can. So put your questions in your comments in the comments section. We're pretty good about getting back to those. Follow us in the meantime on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We'll keep you updated on the most up-to-date weather. You know, is it going to rain in your area? What is the most up-to-date severe weather risk? We usually post that. I was posting early this morning on our Twitter pages. And if you're interested in a wind, hail, or tornado map, you know that hail in northern Colorado, northern Denver this morning, we have that mapped for you already. Give us a call at 855-334-4245 or email us at info@hailtrace.com to get you set up with a map, or even head over to our website, hailtrace.com. All right, thanks for joining us today. We'll see you back here, same time, same place tomorrow.